Skip Weber and Weber Chevrolet.
It's going to be a big year. We're resetting things. We got new incentives out there. Pricing is probably about the same as what it's been. But as we start things on the new year, we are a little bit down on our inventory because of the good December. And when they stop producing the last week of the month and the first week of this month, it's a little bit off kilter from the normal month after month production of cars. So we're a little bit down on our inventory, but our prices haven't changed at all because of it. You can always buy stuff and put your name on it coming in, but we have a lot of pre-owned vehicles. Trade-ins do that for us. Just check our website. I think you'll really, really like what you see because our prices are the best. And if you look at the reviews, we are by far the best reviewed Chevy dealer in a large radius. And that's based on reputation.com and dealerrater.com. So I just know we're the best place to buy.
Granite City, Columbia, Illinois, 11270 and online at WeberChevrolet.com. The Weber Automotive Group.
It's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes. I am so hot, I want to take my clothes off. Good gracious, aspirations, flirtations, trying to show faces. Looking for the right time to shoot my steam. Looking for the right time to flash them keys. It's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes. I am so hot, I want to take my clothes off. I want to take my clothes off.
Hi, I just wanted to let you know that JC is out there running his mouth. Let me read you a comment that he left to someone. Hello, Beth, you Nazi cow.
It's a brand new show on NewsTalkSTL, JC's Sunday Showgram. For over 4 decades, he was backstage at the biggest St. Louis concerts and comedy shows. Over 400 trips to New York and Hollywood for the biggest entertainment stories. He's a talking museum of entertainment facts. It's real-life stories from back in the day, separating the myths from the legend on NewsTalkSTL.com.
I'm also going to need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday, okay?
Now, here's JC.
I trust that your holiday break was better than mine because on Christmas night, I got the flu, and really only in the last 2 days have I really started to feel a little bit better and a little more like myself. It was brutal. This is about as sick as I get. When you're flat on your back with the TV off for like 5 days, you know you're sick, and that was me. Holy crap. I would not recommend getting this, and if it feels stupid wearing, if you still haven't gotten the flu, and especially if you haven't gotten a flu shot, and you feel stupid wearing a mask, well, this is what's waiting for you. 2 weeks that you can just cross off your calendar. I mean, I basically lost 2 weeks of my life. There was a period there about maybe 10 days ago where I didn't know what day it was. So, like I said, I would not recommend this. Anyhow, we're feeling a little better, and here we go for Sunday, January 11th, 2026 here on News Talk STL 119 and 94.1. Where do you want to start? Man, there's just a lot of stuff going on here today. We had the Rams in Carolina yesterday, the Packers and the Bears yesterday also. So this afternoon, the Bills and the Jags, and Jacksonville 1.5-point favorites in that game at noon today. 49ers at Philadelphia with the Eagles 4.5-point favorites in that game. That's at 3:30. And then San Diego and the Patriots with New England 3.5-point favorites in that game tonight at 7 o'clock. Texas and the Steelers tomorrow night with Texas 3-point favorites in that game. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure I would take that bet. That's at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. So there you go. There's all the football stuff. Yeah, it's sort of a bummer. Last night, I do a Saturday night show. That airs from 6 until 9 o'clock every Saturday night right here on News Talk STL. And, you have to sort of fake it a little bit because you know that a lot of people are watching football. Like I said, you had that Bears-Packers game last night, and I'm thinking to myself, who's listening to me? Non-football fans. That's who's listening. So you have to remember that that is a situation to deal with. Now, not to disparage those people who were listening to me instead of watching football last night, I do have to say something. I've had a theory for a long time. This goes back to one of the Rams playoff games back in the late 90s, maybe like 99, 2000, something like that. Right in the middle of the Rams game, this is a playoff game, by the way, I had to leave the house because my daughter, who was very, very little at that time, had a play date and she needed to be picked up. So now I'm thinking to myself, I got to leave this game. I've been waiting for this game for an entire week. I'm halfway through it, and now I got to get in the car, and I got to drive 20 minutes. I'm going to miss like 40 minutes of this game. And an interesting thing happened when I was out in the car. First of all, there weren't very many cars out on the streets for obvious reasons. But the sad thing that I noticed is that the cars that were out, the driving was terrible. And I mean really, really awful. And it occurred to me that people who do not sort of fit in, if you're not watching football, you're not watching the Rams in a playoff game, that does sort of marginalize you a little bit. And I don't know how to say this, but I guess it makes you a bad driver because I noticed it right away. And subsequently, there were a couple of other times where the same situation occurred where there was some huge, like the Super Bowl or something. And, but your daughter is your daughter, and, she didn't care about football, and she's having a play date at a friend's house, and it's time to pick her up, and now you've got to leave. And I'll be damned that the same thing didn't happen, where I noticed right away that the driving was awful. So what is my point? My point is that I guess if you are out of sync with the majority of society, and I really do think that if you're not even cognizant of the Super Bowl, that does marginalize you a little bit. I think that maybe there's something wrong with your driving on top of it. I know it's a strange connection, but try it sometime. Wait for the Super Bowl in a month, okay? And then pause it, go out in your car, and see if I'm right. You're not going to do that, but I'm telling you, if you did, you'd find that out. What else we got? Nikki Glaser, the pride of Kirkwood, at least part of it. So, when I first noticed Nikki Glaser a couple of years ago, I'm thinking to myself, holy crap, this woman is just going to crash through. She's going to be huge. And, of course, I was right. But an interesting thing happened, and this was maybe almost a year ago. I got really tired of her because her comedy is so one-dimensional. Everything is about, bodily secretions and her vagina and, just bodily fluids and just, all that kind of stuff. That's her whole act. And that just really becomes monotonous after a while. And I lost interest, and I thought to myself, there have been other. I look at Andrew Dice Clay. He crashed through. He was absolutely enormous for a couple of years, and then people were like, "Okay, I get it. It's." As Dennis Miller once said when he used to be funny, he said it's like Fonzie with Tourette's. It was a pretty good line, by the way. And I noticed that too, and I just lost interest, as did everybody else, in Andrew Dice Clay for about 30 years. Until he came back in the Lady Gaga movie. But anyhow, I got really, really bored with Nikki Glaser. But then she did that Tom Brady roast, and there was a lot of stuff like that in there too. But she did prove, along with her appearance at the Golden Globes last year, that she can be really, really funny without having to do all that stuff. So the question becomes, what are we going to see later on tonight? We'll probably see something similar to what we saw last year where, because you can't go on network TV and just talk like that. So you got to come up with something else. And she did last year, and she did with the Tom Brady roast. And, when she's not constantly talking about her internal sexual organs, she's really, really funny, and she has a great delivery and great legs, by the way, so let's point that out. You got two people coming out of Kirkwood right now that are really, really experiencing fantastic comedic success, and we wish them the best. All right, as we always do to kick off the first segment here on the Sunday Showgram, it is time for the Weekend Pickup, a collection of bits and pieces, really, really inconsequential, pointless, stupid, some would say, including me, stories that may have flown under your radar. Let's go to press. The story about Matt Khalil, former NFL player, suing his ex-wife for saying that his junk is too big, comparing it to 2 Coke cans. He says it caused unwanted attention, and comments from the public and his family has been affected. Meanwhile, every other male human being walking the face of the earth is thinking, I wish somebody would spread a rumor like this about me. It's also interesting because Red Schoendienst, wonderful Cardinal representative, just a great representative for Major League Baseball. His nickname in the locker room was Soup Can, and I will leave you to your own imagination to work with that one. Oh, speaking of the Golden Globes, this thing has gotten completely out of control, and there's a couple of things you have to understand about the Golden Globes. It's not a real organization. And for years, they sort of got away with, being a very corrupt bunch of people. First of all, it was only about 80 or 90 people, which is crazy because the voting members of the Academy for the Oscars is like, I want to say it's like 4,500 or something like this. But this is, it's the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. That's who the Golden Globes are. And it just means that, when Tom Cruise or, somebody really big, George Clooney or something like that, puts out a movie, the reporters from Italy and Great Britain and Greece and there is no Czechoslovakia anymore. But, what I'm saying is that you get these foreign reporters who come over to America for the opportunity to interview the star of one of these really, really big, usually summer blockbusters. And we had limited contact with them when I was doing press junkets for all of those years, and everybody knew they were crooked. I mean, everybody knew it. There was that famous situation back in the mid-'80s, I want to say, where some movie that nobody ever heard of and a movie star that nobody had ever heard of by the name of Pia Zadora won for Best Actress in a movie, and people were like, who the hell is that? And, it was later revealed that the makers of that movie, the producers and everything, just showered these 80 or 90 people from the Hollywood Foreign Press Association with dinners and cocktail parties, and they gave them like thousands of dollars worth of, merchandise from the movie, jackets and bags and little trinkets and all this sort of stuff. And so they basically bribed him, and it worked. And that was when people really started to focus on the Hollywood Foreign Press, because they're like, okay, these people are just like crooked as the day is long. Well, this went on until a couple of years ago, and finally they got busted pretty badly on lack of diversity and a whole bunch of other things. And I guess they've reorganized. They've brought in more people, and they're trying to reestablish credibility because they never had any to begin with. But what they're trying to make it big time again. Well, here you go. The Golden Globes tonight, the gift bags that the winners and the presenters get are worth $1 million. $1 million in a gift bag. So it's like, massages and Botox and exotic trips and little certificates for cruises and stuff like that, totaling $1 million. So, yeah, they're legitimate. And here's the other thing I don't understand. 7 years ago, 2019, Bohemian Rhapsody wins the Golden Globe for Best Drama, and Rami Malek gets the Best Actor award. Okay, he lip-synced to everything that Freddie Mercury was doing. He lip-synced that whole thing. A couple of years later, Rocket Man comes out. I think actually it was the following year that Rocket Man comes out, and the actor that portrayed Elton John, what's his name? Something Edgerton or something like that. I know I should know that, but I can't remember it right off the top of my head. Anyhow, he does all of the singing himself. Plus, he's got to dance and play piano and do all that stuff. Rami Malek lip-synced, gets the award. This guy who does Elton John does all the singing, all the dancing, and all he got was a nomination. He didn't win. I was talking with Skip Weber about this a couple of weeks ago. Pretty much every Hall of Fame or every awards show has some sort of egregious error built into it. Look at all the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame people who are still waiting to get in. What does Jethro Tull have to do? What does Ian Anderson have to do to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And Styx, I don't think Styx is still in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Academy Awards, Alfred Hitchcock never won one. Well, they gave him an honorary award, but that wasn't a real award for, something that he did, a movie he made. He never, Alfred Hitchcock. Like I said, pretty much every Hall of Fame or just something where somebody is trying to award people for their body of work has some sort of gaping hole in it. This week in 1975, the very first episode of Wheel of Fortune aired on NBC. 75. The show at that time was hosted by Chuck Woolery. That went on until 1981 when Pat Sajak came along. And then there's a chapter in this whole thing that people do not remember. They do not remember this at all. There was a former football player by the name of Rolf Benerschke. And apparently he, after his playing days were over, he was doing some stuff on TV locally in Los Angeles. And Merv Griffin happened to be watching and said, hey, you know what? We're going to be, there's a daytime version, there's a nighttime version, there's a weekend version of Wheel of Fortune. We have all these Wheel of Fortune shows, and Pat Sajak can't do it all. Chuck Woolery ain't working for us anymore. I watched you do some stuff on TV. I thought you would be perfect for this job. So how about this? You're the new host of Wheel of Fortune, the daytime version. And they really came on strong with it, too. I still remember because they called me up and they said, hey, Ralph Benerschke would like to talk to the people of St. Louis. Would you mind doing a satellite interview with them? I was like, sure, why not? We'll do it. And I remember thinking to myself, this guy doesn't even have a personality. How's he going to host a game show? He's just like dead. He'd be like the guy you go to a party, he's the one standing in the corner by himself. He just didn't have any sort of, magnetism or any. He just didn't have it. He didn't have anything. I remember thinking to myself, this guy's going to crash and burn. And sure enough, even after all the publicity, I don't even think he lasted 6 months. And then they just threw more money at Pat Sajak, and he came back to do it. But what a weird. Rolf Benerschke, host of Wheel of Fortune, and people don't even remember that. They remember nothing about Rolf. All right, won't be long before winter's over. Pitchers and catchers start reporting to Jupiter, Florida. Next thing you know, it's going to be the Memorial Day holiday, and the pools are going to be opening up, and all the good movies are going to be coming out. And by the way, this Jodie Foster movie, which is coming out, I think it just came out, must be terrible. It must be awful. First of all, it's all in French with subtitles. And the reason I know that the movie is going to suck without even having seen it is because, number one, it's being dumped in January. January is a dumping ground for movies that they don't know what to do with. And then right about Valentine's Day, you get a whole bunch of romantic comedies that come out, and then there's really nothing usually in March or April, and then you get into May, and then you start getting into the big summer blockbusters. But if a movie is being released in the month of January, that's not a good sign. And the other bad sign is that they are pushing her out everywhere. She's going to be doing that Hot Wings show before you know it. She's just everywhere, and like I said, I like Jodie Foster, but I'll just betcha. But as we get into the new year, you start getting bigger stars and better movies. I don't know about this Ralph Fiennes thing coming out on January 16th next weekend. 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Send Help from director Sam Raimi and starring Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams. That's coming out on January 30th. On February 13th, Margot Robbie in Wuthering Heights. Scream 7 with the return of Neve Campbell, February 27th. Maggie Gyllenhaal gets behind the camera for The Bride. She's going to direct Christian Bale in that thing. It comes out March 6th. The Breadwinner, starring Nate Bargatze. And you knew that was going to happen because, you know, comedians that make it big like that, first thing they try to do is get him in movies and TV shows. The Breadwinner is the name of the movie. March 13th is the due date for that one. Project Hail Mary, Ryan Gosling, March 20th. The Devil Wears Prada 2. It's coming out on May 1st. Mandalorian and Grogu, starring Pedro Pascal and Sigourney Weaver, May 22nd. Masters of the Universe, here we go. Jared Leto as Skeletor, that's June 5th. Power Ballad, Paul Rudd and Nick Jonas, that's on June 5th. Disclosure Day, Steven Spielberg's movie with Emily Blunt, June 12th. The movie that a lot of observers are saying could be the biggest movie of the year, Toy Story 5, coming out on June 19th. The live-action version of Moana on July 10th. Spider-Man, here we go, Brand New Day, July 31st. Tom Cruise, new movie, Digger, that's October 2nd. The follow-up to The Social Network, called The Social Reckoning, October 9th. The Hunger Games, Sunrise Reaping, November 20th. Meet the Parents 4, Focker-in-Law, November 25th. Avengers, Doomsday, December 18th. And I don't have a due date for the Nicolas Cage portrayal of John Madden, but the teaser is online right now. You can go check it out if you so desire. And one of my absolutely favorite times of the year is usually right at the end of December or the first part of January. They release a list of... And by the way, this is an official government database, because what they do is they survey emergency rooms all over the country, and then they compile this stuff, and then a website by the name of defector.com posts it. But these are official government numbers on the list of things that got stuck inside people during the year 2025. In other words, you go to the emergency room and go, this is stuck up my butt. I need you to get it out. And here's the list. A turkey baster, a wine stopper, a shampoo bottle. By the way, the guy claimed he slipped in the shower and came down on the shampoo bottle. Nails and screws, a highlighter, a baseball, a pair of pliers, a bunch of marbles, a coat hanger, a penny, a sandal, a doorknob, a light bulb, a vape pen, 2 pencils, a corncob pipe, a rock, an egg, part of a nose hair trimmer, and a bunch of uncooked pasta. That was supposedly the thing that scared off Dennis Rodman of the Chicago Bulls when he was playing with Madonna. Apparently, he was face down on the bed, and Madonna went into the kitchen and came out with some pasta, uncooked, and just shoved it in there. And Dennis Rodman went out of his mind, and that was what caused them to split up. They also found cotton balls, a small plastic mermaid, 2 spoons, a bunch of aluminum foil, and a Tide Pod. I guess it's better than eating it, like they were doing a couple of years ago. I think that's a good place to stop. There it is, the weekend pickup here on News Talk STL 94.1 and 101.9. It's the Sunday Showgram with JC. I'm taking you back 19 years when I was sitting in the Channel 2 newsroom in the boss's office when something happened that was truly remarkable.
And now, words newscasters coyly refuse to say.
George was popping the tequilas. Next thing you know, the A word is flying. The A word. The B word is out there. The B word.
He called her the C word.
The C word. The D word.
The E word, excommunicated. The F word. The G word.
I want to see a president that doesn't just say the H word.
The I word. The J word.
The K word.
The L word. The M word.
The N word. The N word.
The N word. As in N-word mountain.
The O word. The P word.
The Q word.
Now we're talking about the R word.
The R word.
The S word.
The T word. It's the old U word.
What's the V word? Visibility. The W word.
All words that start with X.
The Y word.
The so-called Z word.
I'd say that pretty much covers it. It's JC. This is the Sunday Showgram on News Talk STL 1019 94.1. So I'm going to take you back 19 years. You know, I had worked at Channel 5 for, I think it was 7 years. Then I was at Channel 4 for about 6 years, you know, doing the entertainment stuff. And then Fox 2, that was the interesting part because I'd been doing entertainment, just celebrity interviews and stuff like that. And Fox 2 said, we think that you have a lot more to say because we hear it on the show, on the radio show every morning. what if you tried to do like a little 90-second thing a couple of times a week? We'll put it on the 5 o'clock news and on the 9 o'clock news on Fox 2. And you just basically talk about what's on your mind. And I said, I like that idea. What do you want to call it? How about what's on my mind? And so that's what we did. I still remember it because it was right about that time that I went to the Superstar Explosion of Soul at the Fox Theater. It was like the Shy-Lights, the Stylistics, what was left of the Temptations, the Emotions. They did The Best of My Love. But it was all these black supergroups. And my mother-in-law and my wife and I all went, and people were like, you're going to go to that? You're going to go to that? Aren't you scared? I'm like, scared of what? So we go in there, and yeah, there were about 4,000 people in there that night, and there were about 6 white people. We were 3 of them. And let me just tell you something. We were welcomed with open arms. And I think there were 2 reasons for that. Number one, I think the black people who were there that night probably thought to themselves, this is pretty cool that they're doing this. We love our music. Who says that some white people don't love our music too? We think that's sort of cool. So that was the first reason. But I think the major reason was Channel 4, and I had worked there, like I said, 6 or 7 years, and sitting next to Julius Hunter gave me street cred in the black community. And so when I walked in, there were even people going, hey, what's on my mind? So they all knew me. And again, like I said, you sit next to Julius Hunter for 6 or 7 years on the news, and you go into a situation, an environment like that, and you're going to really be welcomed well. And we were. And the show was great, by the way. Man, I would go to another one of those shows in a heartbeat. So again, now I'm over at Fox 2, and I would, write these scripts. And they would have to be approved because sometimes they were sensitive topics because they said, we don't want you to talk about entertainment. We want you to talk about real stuff. And it could be something, it was almost Andy Rooney-ish in that some cases it was very serious stuff. And in other cases, it was sort of frivolous. Like it bothers me still the way people drive in parking lots. It's like you see a guy going like 40 miles an hour in a parking lot. And you're like, dude. There's people wandering around looking for their car and everything, and you're go flying by here. It's just not safe. What are you thinking? So I remember that was one of the commentaries. But these scripts, and I would record them in the studio like the afternoon before the thing was going to air. And the news director always said, just come on by my office when you get here. And I would just want to look over the script, make sure everything's cool. It was like, that's a perfectly reasonable request from the news director to want to see what you're going to put out on the air in a commentary. So, like I said, it was 19 years ago this week, and I'm sitting in his office, and I don't know, it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's just a typical day, and all of a sudden, there is a tremendous amount of commotion in the newsroom, which we can see through the glass of his window of his office. Like, what the hell is going on? So the news director, he pops up out of his chair. Good guy, by the way. He pops up out of his chair, and at that very moment, his door just flies open. The person didn't even knock. The door just went flying open, and the assistant news director stands there. She was white as a sheet, and she said, they just found Shawn Hornbeck. This was the, then little boy who was kidnapped way down in southern Missouri somewhere. Nobody had heard anything about him for a couple of years. A lot of people just presumed that he was dead. And immediately everybody starts asking questions like, what kind of shape is he in? Is he's okay? Not thinking that, you're just talking about physically he was okay. Mentally, I'm sure there were issues, which I'll get to here in just a minute. But I'm telling you, talk about a place, there were people crying. There were people smiling. There were people who just didn't seem to be able to control their emotions going from one end to the other because it was so joyful. And at the same time, okay, we got to do news stories now. We got to maintain our composure here, and we got to get it on the air fast. And when something like this happens, everybody in the newsroom starts thinking about what angles you can use to cover the story. Because, okay, you have a story. You don't have many details at all. It's not like they're going to wheel out Shawn Hornbeck and let everybody start talking to him. You know, that would be unreasonable in terms of an expectation. So what do? You got to start lining up child psychologists. You got to start lining up law enforcement people. You got to try to talk to the people who found him, because he was living in that apartment in Kirkwood with you know, by anybody's definition, a monster who had kidnapped him. And there was one thing about that story that people, I'm not sure, either knew or would remember at this point. But this creep who kidnapped Shawn Hornbeck, he worked at a crematorium. And there was wide speculation that Shawn Hornbeck, that this monster guy, he liked little boys, and that Shawn Hornbeck was starting to grow a little bit older, and this was not what this guy wanted. And there was a lot of speculation that Shawn Hornbeck would soon be killed. His remains would be, you know, destroyed in the crematorium, and then this guy would go out and kidnap another little boy. But you want to talk about an electricity that can go through a newsroom. And when you have professional news people who, you know, you got to understand something. These people on a daily basis, especially the general assignment reporters, you know, they're going out and, you know, to a crime scene or something, and they're seeing dead bodies all the time. They're seeing people who were, you know, badly beaten, either in some sort of a random crime or in a domestic dispute. They see stuff on a daily basis that would normally turn the average person's stomach upside down. Now, something like this happens, and it's truly remarkable, because a lot of cases don't get any sort of closure at all. You don't find a live human being. A lot of times you don't even find the corpse. And the families end up not getting closure, and the police departments and the investigators and everybody like that, you know, they have these cold cases and they're still pursuing it. And to get closure of something like this, where the kid, at least physically, is okay, and now you got to start talking about the long road back where you can piece together some semblance of a normal life after enduring something like that. It was quite a day. I know it's hard to believe, but it was 50 years ago last week that Frampton Comes Alive was released, January 6, 1976. Now, Mike Myers on Saturday Night Live did the best joke of all, talk about how everybody had a copy of it. It was like, they would just hang a copy on your doorknob like they used to do with samples of Tide. Pretty good line. So I think everybody pretty much knows the story of the meteoric rise of Peter Frampton, because not only was he putting out this great music in this album that everybody had, but also he was really, really good looking, and he was that matinee idol type thing, and the girls went crazy. And even the guys were like, I can't really complain that my girlfriend is getting off to him, because damn good looking guy. And he had his shirt off most of the time. And all that was great, and he made a lot of money, and the record company made a lot of money, and he got really, really famous. But what we like to do in this country is build somebody way up so we can knock him the F down. And that's exactly what happened in the case of Peter Frampton, because especially after, oh, God, talk about getting some bad advice, being the fourth BG in the Sgt. Pepper movie, which, by the way, if you watch it now, it is really, really depressing to think not only that this passed as entertainment, but you see Peter Frampton and you're thinking to yourself, wow, what a bad decision.
When you are the biggest of something, it's like, I often in those days likened it to Rubik's Cube. Yes, we play it still, but there was a time there where people were driving and doing the cube, you know, so it gets to a point where it's overkill. And I think that the thing about this country is that the U.S. especially, I know this was a worldwide hit, but the U.S. especially, it's so big and it takes a long time to saturate especially back in those days with no internet, saturate the entire country. It gets to a point where we've had enough of that.
Yeah.
It's just thrown in their face so much. That's before we even get to image. Things changed for me because the way I look, obviously, or looked then, not now. But back then, I was a good-looking guy, and it fit with the job that I was doing, which was playing rock music. So when the thing hit, I was on the cover of every magazine known to man and to woman. It was just a case of absolute overkill. The other thing is that with Comes Alive, it was 6 years worth of music from Humble Pie all the way through all my solo records. It was a selection of all those. So they were all well known. It was the stage act. It's what people came to see. We did that and recorded it, and for some reason it hit a nerve with everybody. When going to do a follow-up record, there were mistakes made during that period because no one had an artist who had sold that many records at that particular moment in time. And so everybody was trying to influence me as to what they should do. Everyone had an agenda. And I think the old rules before that record were that, well, let's follow that right up straight away. Well, it had been such overkill on the radio and just magazines and papers and everything. It was one of those things where now I'm rushing into doing another album, which we shouldn't have done that soon. Now I had 3 months to write, 6 years worth of music, if you get the drift. Mm. So it's like all of a sudden other people's agenda were, well, this is a cash cow here. We need to just, rather than thinking career-wise, everyone started thinking corporately. And that's where the corporate thing started. So from that year on, 76 on.
All right, you and I have a mutual friend, everybody's friend here in St. Louis, Bob Heil, St. Louis's own. I actually talked to him for about a half an hour yesterday, as a matter of fact. He told me a story I was unaware of, that your girlfriend at the time, Penny, was looking for a Christmas present for you back in 1974. Tell the story about how Bob Heil influenced what was under the tree Christmas back in 74.
Bob Heil is a ham radio expert, and so is Joe Walsh, and they are bosom buddies. I've known Bob for a long time, but Joe and him have been friends for years. I have to go back very quickly to the All Things Must Pass sessions with George Harrison, and there's Pete Drake, the pedal steel player, is sitting right in front of me. After the first couple of days, there's a slow moment. He said, "Hey, Peter, you should check this out." So he gets this little metal box out, plugs his pedal steel into it, and puts a pipe in his mouth, and the thing starts singing to me. And I screamed out loud, "What is that sound?" So anyway, that unit, the talk box, that's the first one I saw with Pete Drake, he made it himself, was then lent to Joe Walsh to do a record called Rocky Mountain Way, which was on the Smoker You Play, the Something You Drink, whatever.
Smoker You Get, the Player You Drink.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great album.
That one. And was obviously his first huge hit. And that's the definitive talkbox solo on there. I still maintain that. I love what he played on that. And I've told him many times. So Joe's using this one of Pete Drake's on the record, but then wants to go on the road and says to Bob Heil, "Look, this one's not loud enough. Can you make one that's louder for stage?" So Bob takes the case on and makes the very first Heil talkbox, which is the one that my girlfriend got Bob to, if we could have one. And that's when she gave it to me for Christmas. So it all starts from George Harrison, actually.
Unbelievable. What a piece of history right there linked to the St. Louis area. So David Bowie, who passed away 10 years ago yesterday, and that's hard to believe, by the way, that was 10 years ago. David Bowie and Peter Frampton went to school together. One of their parents was a school administrator, if I remember this correctly. But anyhow, when Peter Frampton, after that meteoric rise and fall, just was seemingly wandering aimlessly in the music world, and it was Bowie who said, "You got to start playing again, and you know what? Why don't you come out with us?" So Peter Frampton played with David Bowie out on the road for a bunch of live concerts, and that began a little bit of a comeback for him. I had one of those Spinal Tap moments back in the early 1980s where I was lost in this giant venue called the Wax Museum in Washington, D.C., and I was just like grabbing doorknobs and opening them up, and I was completely lost. I'm like, I'm going to die back here. Nobody's ever going to find me. And I just trying doors and just, I don't know where I am. And I open up one door, and sitting on a metal chair is Peter Frampton sitting in a pair of white boxer shorts. And it was there at that moment where I saw the scar. And I'm, because Peter Frampton flipped his car in 1978 in the Bahamas and almost lost an arm in the process. He broke a bunch of bones. I think he had some busted ribs. His vertebrae was fractured. I mean, he was messed up after that car accident, which, is in so much pain. That led to a period of drug abuse, also with painkillers. But the dude was in a bad, bad way. But he had a scar that went from his, I think it was his left collarbone, traversed his chest and went all the way down his thigh. And he just sort of looked at me like, who the hell are you? And I froze because, I just told you what I'm looking at. And I said, sorry, I closed the door and I just ran. That was a very, very sobering moment. But the fast forward on this thing is that Peter Frampton, for the last, I don't know how long it is, it's been a while now, has been living just outside of Nashville. Apparently met some girl. That's where he's been living, which led me to ask this question of Peter Frampton. What is life like as an American citizen, which you are now, by the way? And what's it like? You get recognized? How do people treat you? Not when you're performing. I'm talking about when you go into a Home Depot or something in suburban Nashville because you need some rope for something. What's life like, and how do people treat you?
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I bought rope. Hang the neighbor, I think. I did hang that one guy. Yeah.
Guy. He was asking for it, though.
Yeah, I know what you mean. With great respect, I don't suffer fools easily, but also, you have the occasional person that you'd prefer you didn't meet. But I would say 98% of people, when they see me around town in Nashville, either just smile or, if I'm in Home Depot in aisle 17, there's a good chance there'll be a selfie taken, So
just hold this rope, Peter.
Yeah, right, exactly.
We'll make it look like an accident. Oh, my God.
And why do you need that gasoline as well? Well, no, I'm not going to burn the house down. So.
And by the way, he's right. He does not suffer fools. I've seen him get mad once. And it's not a pretty sight, but what a story from this guy 50 years ago this week, and the release of Frampton Comes Alive.
Good morning, dear. How was your sleep phase?
Sufficient. You have stimulated me. Let us return to the sleep chamber immediately.
Here on News Talk STL 1019, 94.1, it's JC. This is hour number 2 of the Sunday Showgram. Hope you enjoyed the first hour. And don't forget, not only are we here on Sunday mornings, this show goes to podcast every Monday morning on the News Talk STL app, which is absolutely free. So usually by 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday, if you missed any part of the show, you can hear it on beginning on Monday on the News Talk STL app. A couple of things I did not get to in the weekend pickup, which we begin the show with at 7 o'clock in the morning every week. My buddy Bob Einstein, Super Dave, Marty Funkhauser, whatever you want to call him, passed away 7 years ago last week. When I be out in California doing those press junkets, he used to come by 7 o'clock in the morning and take me out in his SUV. We go out and have breakfast. He'd drive me around L.A. a little bit, show me some things that were going on. Bob Einstein, what a great guy. 7 years ago, we lost him. Also, 5th anniversary of the passing of Jerry Berger. Jerry Berger and I started off on the wrong foot. I'd say the whole first year I was in St. Louis back in 1984, we did not get along, and he wrote some snotty stuff about me, and I said some snotty stuff about him on this show, and we eventually patched things up and became very, very good friends. And matter of fact, when I would call him, or he would call me, he would say, not how's your mother? He'd say, how's Marge? He knew my mother. She had met him a couple of times when my parents were in St. Louis, and they just fell in love. And my mother and Jerry Berger were pals, and he always asked how Marge was doing. We talked last hour about the passing of David Bowie 10 years ago. 10 years ago yesterday. And also, this is the 6th anniversary of the passing of Neil Peart, or Peart, if you prefer, of Rush. On this date, 7 years ago, St. Louis was digging out of an 11.5-inch snowstorm, 11.4 inches to be exact. That was that one that hit on Friday evening. The weather forecasters thought that the storm was going to hit a little bit later at night, but it started sooner than they thought. And people could not even go. People on Clarkson just trying to get up just a little grade that they have on Clarkson Road and couldn't even make it up that grade, which couldn't have been more than a couple of degrees. But the real story was the people on 55, and especially on Highway 40, who could not negotiate the icy conditions on the highway and just left their cars on the highway. And a lot of people just walked along the highway a little bit, jumped the fence, and tried to get into a hotel because they knew they were going to be there overnight. I had a friend who worked in the Chesterfield Valley but lived in South County, and it took her almost 8 hours to get home, but she made it. And that's how it started with, icy conditions. And then the snow came, like I said, 11.4. Tomorrow is the anniversary, the 26th anniversary of not only of the passing of St. Louis Blues great, Doug Wickenheiser. Doug was a great guy, another pal of mine. We were neighbors in Baldwin when I bought my first house back in 1986. And he and Greg Pezlowski, as a matter of fact, sharing a house right around the corner. And Wick was a practical joker, and he was always doing stuff to me. He picked up all of the lawn jockeys all over the neighborhood and stacked them in front of my front door one morning, trying to get out the door to get the paper. And I finally had to go out the garage and come around, and there's all the lawn jockeys. It was 40 years ago, this coming Tuesday, that I got to be an extra on Miami Vice. Biggest show in television back then, and they went around to about a dozen of the biggest morning shows across the country and said, all right, here's the deal. You and a listener get to come down to Miami. We're going to dress you up in Miami Vice style gear. The guys had those linen jackets with the sleeves rolled up and everything. And sure enough, they flew us in, and it cured me of ever wanting to be in a television show, because our call was at 7 a.m. We had to be at the place at 7 o'clock in the morning. We did not shoot our scene until 9:30 that night. We sat around all day waiting for this thing. I mean, on one hand, it was great because it's like, there I am for 4 seconds in an episode of Miami Vice. It was the one with Frank Zappa, as a matter of fact. Got to hang out with him a little bit on that trip. But, but you're sitting there. I mean, they fed us, but there's something about the immediacy of radio where you sit down, you turn on the microphone, and you start talking. But in television and in movies, man, you sit around, you just sit around. But it was a great experience. This week in 1993, Jerry Lewis was in town for about a week or two. He was doing Damn Yankees at the fabulous Fox Theater. This Thursday is the anniversary back in 2009 of Sully Sullenberger taking what could have been one of the biggest air disasters in the history of aviation in this country, and instead became a hero. Put the big bird down in the Hudson. U-Man is having a birthday on Thursday. Happy birthday, John. And if you missed the first hour of today's show, make sure you catch it on the podcast starting tomorrow, because we talked about this date back in 2007 when I was sitting in the Fox 2 newsroom when they found Shawn Hornbeck. And it's quite a story, so you can check that out on the podcast beginning tomorrow. Don't get this flu. Do not get this flu. I got sick on Christmas night. I was flat on my back for about 5. When you're in bed and you get the lights off and you don't even have the TV on, you're sick. 5 days for me with that. And I'm still battling the after effects. Obviously, it's been over 2 weeks now and this is about as sick as I get, but starting to recuperate a little bit. But I'm telling you, do whatever you have to do. Wear a mask. Do whatever you have to do to not get this. It was Elvis's birthday on Thursday, the 8th, and that gives me the opportunity to delve into my Elvis collection. I have quite a bit of stuff in here, including two very, very memorable moments from David Letterman.
Lord Almighty, I feel my temperature rising. Higher, higher, burning through to my soul. Your kisses lift me higher, like the sweet song of a choir. And you light my morning sky with burning love. Just a hunk of burning love. Just a hunk of burning love. Just a hunk of burning love. Burning love. Be good to your mama.
Larry Bud Melman, right there, Calvert DeForest. And, if you used to watch Sybil Shepherd on the television talk shows, she rarely held anything back. And there was one night where she was on with Dave and pretty much let it all go.
Well, actually, he rented movie theaters, so at 12 midnight, I went there, and there were about 35 people in the movie theater, and we sat down, and like three-fourths of the movie went by, and then finally, all of a sudden, everybody in the row next to me got up and moved one seat down, and then Elvis came and sat next to me.
Yeah. Wow. Now, did you spend any time with the guy? Could you get any sense of what this guy was about? Did you continue dating him? Did you go out with him?
Well, I did get to go to Graceland for dinner, and
what would you have at dinner?
Oh, chicken fried steak.
Wow.
He had a lot of it.
Yeah.
He had a big appetite.
Oh, yeah.
But there was one thing he wouldn't eat.
What was that?
Well.
God. Oh, my. The king of rock and roll. Who would have guessed? God, this just immediately took a really ugly turn, didn't it? I want to know. I'm trying to figure out what's on the menu. Like, chicken fried steak and then boom, right on.
Well, obviously our relationship didn't last too long.
Okay, now, all right. Now.
Too often it's a case of girls who are not that attractive who can talk dirty and very suggestive. But when you get somebody as pretty as Sybil Shepherd and she starts talking like that, wow.
JC, how are you, mate?
Hugh, how are you? I've heard of you. You tend not to take movie roles that are easy. There's a lot of makeup and physical demands. Wolverine, obviously, an example of that. On any given day, when you're on the set shooting, what tends to be the work versus fun ratio? Because I picture you maybe some days standing there going, why didn't I just take a nice romantic comedy with Sandra Bullock?
Most mornings at 4 a.m. when the alarm goes off for the gym, I think that. I do love the challenge that acting gives you. I like the physical challenge. If I'm on stage, the vocal challenge, or, it could be dancing or whatever it is, there's a challenge involved, and I'm a little probably hooked to, putting a mountain in front of me, because you've got to feel a little bit scared, I think, as an actor. You've got to feel a little bit like, ooh, don't know if I can pull this off. And in that way, it makes you delve into yourself deeper and pull the best out of yourself. So it is all fun. I love it. In a way, I never feel like I'm working at all because this is what I love to do, but I kind of do torture myself a bit.
There was a TV show here that people saw a while back, maybe a year or so ago, where you made an entrance on a zip line and almost took your damn head off. Can you please talk about what happened? How scary was that really? How close to actual physical danger and serious injury were you, and sort of the backstory on that whole thing?
Yeah, well, it was the Oprah show, and she came down to Australia, and she had this idea that I would zip line from the Opera House, the top of the Opera House, down to the stage. I thought, this is going to be such a cool shot. Show Sydney off. And I really didn't have much time to rehearse it because I landed that morning, and I did one sort of rehearsal, like a very gentle rehearsal with it. And the last thing, the guy who I knew, actually, he's a stuntman, he said to me, he goes, mate, the faster you go, the better the break works. Okay?
That doesn't make sense.
I'm like, I do the break? And he goes, yeah, you got to do it. He goes, I'm an actor, man. I don't know if you should be giving me the power of the break. And he goes, you'll be fine, man. Remember, the faster you go, the better the break works. Well, that wasn't my experience. So when I went to stop, It didn't stop as quickly as I would have liked, and I actually missed a light by, it must have been an inch. If I'd gone into that light, I don't think I'd be on the phone with you right now, but I went in pretty hard, and actually I did whack my face, but mainly it was my leg that got hit. I thought I'd broken my leg, actually, at the time. And the hardest bit for me was I don't normally take my kids to those things. So, like, you know, there were 6,000 people. They normally don't want to go, and they'd really asked to go because they know Oprah. They've met her socially, right? So they're, we want to go and see Oprah. So they were sitting in the audience when I did this, and that's why I kind of turned my back. I didn't want to turn around because I knew I saw blood dripping down onto my shirt. And at that point, I wasn't sure how bad it was. And for all I knew, my face was caved in, right? You know, so I didn't want to turn around. I was trying to hide from them. And apparently, my wife said to me, she said, my son, who was probably 9 at the time, or 9 or 10, he just turned to her and said, why can't we be a normal family?
Oh, jeez. You know, for a period of years in the late 80s and early 90s, Americans went sort of nuts for Australia. You had Men at Work, and you had the Crocodile Dundee movies, and Put Another Shrimp on the Barbie and all that. That sort of subsided. But talk a little bit about your home country, maybe something people should see or do if they want to come to Australia.
You know, I say to everyone, I understand it's a long way, and mentally for a lot of people from America, the idea of being on a plane for that long is just so foreign to them, but put it on your bucket list because, as I tell everyone, it's like 2 glasses of wine and a sleeping pill and you're there. And it's not that bad. And honestly, you know, I think Americans and Australians share a lot in common, and I think people will find, first of all, it's physically beautiful, but Australia is the size of America with the population of California. So there is space, there is beautiful food, great people, and you'll have a very unique experience. So I encourage everyone to go there at least once.
Hugh Jackman, continued great success. Thanks for spending a little time with us this morning.
My pleasure, man. Thanks, JC.
JC's Wayback Machine.
Radio? Who needs a radio?
Like what you're hearing? Don't forget JC's Wayback Machine every Saturday night from 6 until 9 on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL and the free News Talk STL app.
Well, when you start reconnecting with people after the long holiday, almost everybody has one story, one thing that stood out that happened to them over the Christmas, New Year's vacation. For me, it's simple. I got the flu on Christmas night. I was flat on my back for about 7 days, and the last week has been just, you know, a little bit of you feel a little better, and then you don't feel better, and you just keep fighting it off and fighting it off. I trust that your holiday was better than mine.
Well, yes and no. I loved it, but we had our own health issues. My wife, who is doing a lot of good recovery, she had a great Christmas Eve, but she got overwhelmed. I would say her immune system possibly overwhelmed. But she had a rough Christmas Day, and we celebrate both days pretty equally with the family. So all the presents had been given out already, except for the stockings, when there's always a key thing or two in the stockings, but that had to be done over the next couple days. But then shortly thereafter, or shortly before that, my son-in-law had gotten finally out of the hospital just a few days before Christmas. He had to have about 6 inches of his colon removed because of perforations that began in Thanksgiving, and they tried it with medicine, and then they flared up again, you know, about the 15th, and it's just been crazy. So we've been really, really conscientious about health and everybody's recovering and so on and so forth. But it was great, lots of fun, not as painful as actually suffering from the flu like you did there. So, you know, and then we just had my grandson's 2nd birthday, and that was all fun. So a lot of good and bad, but you know what? That's what the last few years have been. So more good. I would say more good.
My uncle, the baseball player, had the same thing. He had something like 8 feet of his intestines taken out. And, after again, this was like 1959 or something, and it took forever for him to recover, but he got back out onto the baseball field and continued his career. So, that stuff does happen. That's scary stuff. That's really scary stuff.
It is. Especially, he's a young guy. He's much younger than most people this happens to. So that was a little bit disconcerting for us. But they did say they do believe this will solve it. So I think there's a history of it in his family. So, we'll just have to see. Boy, it's just, kind of one thing after another sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to believe. It's hard to imagine. But today, on this day, 10 years ago, we lost David Bowie. And it came as quite a shock to people because I don't think most people even knew that, there was anything wrong with him. So when it was announced, people were like, oh, my God, I didn't know.
10 years. Oh, my gosh. It seems like it's just a year or two ago.
You were, as I recall, a pretty big Bowie fan.
I love David Bowie. Really did. I really liked his every one of his personas. And the more I learned about him, the more I learned that he was really into creating that persona, but it wasn't who he was. A lot of people will do something, a character, and especially the weirder characters, and they become kind of weird themselves because of it, or they do it because they're kind of weird, so to speak. But he, between his Ziggy Stardust and his Aladdin Sane, and then his later work when he became the guy in the white leisure suit and all those, it was just always a stage presence, and he put on those costumes and masks to do the performance, and which is why he was so good in concert, because he could emulate the spirit of those genres really, really well. It was a very, very good concert. Extremely talented guy, and a big loss to us.
And I'll tell you something else about Bowie that a lot of people don't know. He went to grade school with Peter Frampton. I think one of their parents was the school administrator or something like that. But anyhow, after Peter Frampton had his incredible rise with Frampton Comes Alive, which, by the way, came out 50 years ago last week. And then, of course, it had the Sgt. Pepper thing, and he crashed pretty much as fast as he rose. It was, in fact, David Bowie that encouraged him to start playing again after he was sort of, down and out and depressed and not really knowing where to go with his career. It was Bowie who came along and said, why don't you play with us for a while? And it began Frampton's comeback.
Right, and he took him out on his Glass Spiders tour, which was a great album. Was a very good tour. And the thing I remember most about that tour is he didn't play any of his old stuff. He didn't go back older than about 80 with Heroes and stuff. And a lot of that was because he wanted to focus on the stuff that would give Peter Frampton more of a spotlight with his guitar work. They didn't do any of the goofy stuff. They didn't do any of the Spiders from Mars and all that kind of stuff. And they actually had Peter Frampton play a lot of solo stuff with the spotlight on him in that tour. It was very, very cool. Really, really neat story about two friends.
All right, back to the car business. Here we go, the beginning of the new year. And what do you want people to know about what's going on at Weber Chevrolet these days?
It's going to be a big year. We're resetting things. We got new incentives out there. Pricing is probably about the same as what it's been. But as we start things on the new year, we are a little bit down on our inventory because of the good December. And when they stop producing the last week of the month and the first week of this month, it's a little bit off kilter from the normal month after month production of cars. So we're a little bit down on our inventory, but our prices haven't changed at all because of it. They're still going to be good. You can always buy stuff and put your name on it coming in, but we have a lot of pre-owned vehicles. Trade-ins do that for us. Just check our website. I think you'll really, really like what you see. I know we're the best people to buy from because our prices are the best. And if you look at the reviews, we are by far the best reviewed Chevy dealer in a large, large radius, several hundred miles. You got to go a long way away. And that's based on reputation.com and dealerrater.com. So I just know we're the best place to buy.
All right, it's great to hear your voice again and reconnect and everything. Best to your family. I know been a lot of ups and downs, like you were saying, and hopefully it'll be a good 2026 for everybody. Skip Weber, Weber Chevrolet, 3 locations. Granite City, Columbia, Illinois, Olive and 270, and online at WeberChevrolet.com. The Weber Automotive Group includes the Ford dealership in Granite City that specializes, I guess you would say, in a lot of like service vehicles and delivery type stuff. And, if you got a business that requires that, you should check that out too. Skip, have a great week. We'll talk to you in a couple of days. Thanks.
Sounds good, JC. Take care.
It's JC's Sunday Showgram.
That gal knows what she's doing. That's Casey Musgraves, recorded live. The song is Deeper Well. She's like 36 years old and a pretty good songwriter, easy on the eyes, and just makes good music. See, and that little Americana station that we all got stuck working at for a while, that's the sort of stuff that they should have played. That radio station, by the way, is off the air. They're out of business, and it doesn't surprise me. You can only help people as much as they want to be helped, and let's just say there was an issue there. But if they had played more stuff like Casey Musgraves, maybe their fate wouldn't have been so terminal. All right, as we were mentioning, lots of football later on today. Bills and Jags. Jacksonville, 1.5-point favorites. That's the noon game. 49ers at Philadelphia with the Eagles, 4.5-point favorites in that game at 3:30. And then San Diego at New England with the Patriots, 3.5-point favorites. That game at 7 o'clock. Then tomorrow night, you got Texas and the Steelers with Texas 3-point favorites in that game. That game at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Speaking of football, let's talk about sideline announcers. They put some fairly good-looking women on the sidelines. Most of them are decent reporters. They do a good job. Some do real well. They know more about football than I do. I know that. Some of them, not so good. I want you to listen to this from last weekend. You will hear 2 sideline reporters prior to the game. Here's the first.
How would you describe the resilience and pride of this team right now?
Yeah, the pride is high. Of course, we're not in the main dance at the end of the season, but we have enough pride to come out here and still want to win, still give that effort, still fight for a good ending of our season, and to look back on something to really, remember. So the effort is there, the energy is there. I love these fans. It's definitely a great game to go off.
Thanks so much. Merry Christmas again, and we'll send it to Diana receiving.
Okay, not bad. Got a colorful response out of the guy who is out of the playoffs, got nothing to play for except pride. Now you go over to the other side of the field. Let's talk to the starting quarterback.
Yeah, thanks, AJ. Jared, short week, Christmas Day, a crowd that's certainly going to be against you. What are you expecting from this team right out of the gate?
Yeah, I'm expecting us to come out firing, show who we are, and get back to who we are really quickly.
Now, first of all, you can tell this guy doesn't want to talk. He just wants to go out there and play, and he just wants to get out onto the field. Here is a demonstration of what I think everybody would describe as a really, really stupid question.
In terms of who you're trying to get the ball to first today, knowing that you guys want to get this ground game going, who are you looking at?
We got a lot of guys who want to get it to. We'll find out. I don't know.
She just asked the starting quarterback who he was going to throw the ball to first. Sure, I'll answer that. I'll tell you who I'm going to throw the ball to first so the other team can be ready.
All right, thanks so much. Merry Christmas. Good luck.
A lot of guys to get it to and a lot of time ahead of us.
The guy up in the booth was like, God, how do I polish this turd? Let me just do some sort of generic transition. Who are you going to throw the ball to first? And I'll tell you something else. You had to have basically 3 separate subscriptions to be able to watch all the football games over the holidays. You needed some sort of basic cable system that you have to pay for unless you have an antenna on your house and you get the over-the-air stations free. But you had to have something to be able to get you the local stations, the network stations. Then you needed a subscription to Amazon Prime. Then you needed a subscription to, Peacock? And that was a minimum I think $11.99 for 1 month. And then, of course, you watch one game and then you cancel the subscription immediately like I did. But still, it costs you $12 to see that game. And then Netflix has games too. I hate to say it this way, but this is a little peek into the future. I would say that within 3 years, the Super Bowl isn't going to be on over-the-air TV. You're going to need some sort of subscription to something to be able to see the Super Bowl. And I think before you know it, there may not be any football games on free TV. Everything is going to go to subscription. You can see it coming. They're already doing it with the NBA, the NHL. Yeah, you get an occasional game on over-the-air TV. In the NBA, you get an occasional game, a hockey game. You'll get an occasional baseball game for the most part, especially if you want to watch your team, whether it's the Cardinals or somebody else. You got to have a subscription for something to be able to get that. And the NFL has been watching. And the NFL likes money. Nothing wrong with liking money, but there's a difference between liking money and liking it so much that you got to screw your fans out of their money. And not just for one subscription to something, multiple subscriptions. You needed 3 separate subscriptions to be able to watch the games that were on over the holidays. If you like sports, especially football, if I were you, I'd start saving my money. And as if we needed any more testosterone in the NFL, how about this stadium announcer?
Please rise as today's covers are presented by the United States Marine Corps. And now, kindly remove your caps and place your right hand over your heart as we honor America with the performance of our national anthem.
That guy likes his voice, you can tell. He didn't say Marine Corps, he said...
Marine Corps.
Not Marine Corps, Marine Corps. All right, now it's time to get the game going here. Oh, no, that's right. Got the national anthem. Who's going to sing? What famous person is going to sing?
Performed by Netflix's Building the Band Runner-Ups, Season 4.
Now, to perform the national anthem, the brother of a guy who watched American Idol Season 2 and roomed with ribbons stuttered. I mean, come on. Every community has famous singers that they can claim. California's loaded with them, so all the California teams, you can bring out anybody. Chicago, lots of famous singers out of Chicago. St. Louis, lots of famous singers coming out of St. Louis. These guys are like, who's available? Nobody. Let's bring out the Season 4 runner-up. Oh, Jesus. All right, as long as we're talking about bad singing, here we go. Right around the corner. It sucked then, it sucks now. Stick around. It's the Sunday Showgram with JC on NewsTalkSTL 1019 94.1. We'll talk to you again next weekend right here on NewsTalkSTL. In the meantime, we've beaten this one to death. Have a good one. See you later.
This is America, Lois. Men have always run things, and there have never been any problems whatsoever. And don't say the economy or Iraq or income inequality or racism or Brett Kavanaugh or air pollution or Vietnam or slavery or Watergate or capitalism or Me Too or homelessness or police brutality or homophobia or Monica Lewinsky or school shootings or Native American genocide or Fox News or Tim Allen or climate change.
You make a good point.
Bye.